All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Sequim City Council to order. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if the city clerk could please take roll call.
Councilor Downer.
Here.
Councilor Butler. Councilor Lowe.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Present.
Mayor Janice.
Present.
Councilor Rutter. Councilor Hartman.
Here.
And if there's a motion to excuse Councilor Rutter.
So moved.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Any opposed? Seeing none, she is excused. All right, item 4, approval of the final agenda. Is there any changes to the final agenda? Councilor Downer?
I move that we remove item number 9G from the consent agenda and put it on the general business agenda.
Okay, we'll move that to 10E.
Thank you.
Any opposed to that? Okay, moving on. No ceremonial tonight. Item 6 is public comment. City Clerk.
So tonight we have a public hearing, and at this time we will just be doing general public comments. So if there's any general public comments not related to the noise ordinance public hearing, we will be hearing general comments at this time. The public comment sheet is available for those attending in person. For the general public comments, it's the large spreadsheet. I will be collecting those. Comments will also be available by those attending virtually or by phone. For individuals attending in person, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. For those attending virtually or by phone, if you would like to provide a general public comment not related to the noise ordinance, please now press the raise your hand icon, or if you're on the phone, press *9. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak on any topic, and there will be a timer visible on the screen. A total of 30 minutes will be permitted to provide public comment. Please state your name and if you're representing an organization. I'll now collect the in-person general public comment sheet. There's no one signed up for the in-person general public comment. And at this time, I see nobody raising their hand for the general public comment. So that ends this portion of the meeting.
All right. Move on to item 7A, which is the public hearing. And the subject of this public hearing is the Noise Control Ordinance, proposed Sequim Municipal Code, Chapter 8.32. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Does the city manager or staff have any testimony to present?
For purposes of the record, Christina Nelson Gross, City Attorney. This is actually Chief Mike Hill's item tonight, but he is away on vacation. And so he has asked me to take public comment and any feedback from council tonight. So that's what we're here to do. Council, I believe, is already familiar with the first touch of the ordinance. As stated in the agenda cover sheet, that we have made a couple of those adjustments in terms of clarifying the penalties and a couple of other things as discussed during our first touch. And with that, I am certainly able to answer questions that council may have to the best of my ability, but other questions may need to be referred to the chief of police upon his return.
Were you able to review any of the emails in regards to this? Public comments?
I have only received one email, and yes, I reviewed it, and I seem to there was one issue, I think, in regard to public comment made at last meeting, is with regard to renters and things like that. That has been clarified in here to where it would be applicable to that same thing for people who live in apartments or whatnot. And I think at this point, staff believe that we have addressed the public comments that I have seen and that I have heard about to the best of our abilities, knowing that not every single person is going to be satisfied with the ordinance as written.
Does council have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing that, we will now move to the public comment. As this is a public hearing, all audience members wishing to make public comment will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please give your name, address, and whether you reside in the city limits of Sequim. Please avoid making repetitious comments, personal attacks, or comments not related to the subject before council. City Clerk.
Thank you. Yes, we are now moving to specifically the public hearing comment portion of this meeting. So again, if you are attending virtually via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please press the raise your hand icon at this time. If you are on the phone and wish to speak, please press *9. I will alternate in-person comments with those attending virtually. And I will ask Anthony, our IT person, if there is anyone online that we could start with.
Yes, pardon me. We have a call-in user, user visiting on phone. Please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
The call-in user, let's see, let's start with, let's see, we have two. The person on the phone, if you could please press *9 and unmute your phone at this time. You may address the council.
All right, I assume that is me. Good evening. I am Doug Wright, and I live in Hendrickson Community in Sequim. I live in a retirement community with a noise problem. It is not from seniors dancing naked to loud classic. Our noise problem comes from the street running through our neighborhood. Sound, being the energy that is transmitted by longitudinal pressure waves, is amplified by vehicular traffic traveling well above the posted speed limit. In other words, large objects pushing a lot of air at high velocity. Noise, being any sound that is undesired, in our case is accompanied by defective or modified vehicle exhaust systems and amplified vehicle sound systems, which results in a person's home actually vibrating as these vehicles pass through our neighborhood. I know this from personal experience. Based on my reading of this ordinance, I am unclear as to whether or not it will address these issues. If so, I would appreciate clarification. If not, I would appreciate adding language to do so. I would like to thank staff for adding language suggested during the last meeting, which I believe improves this ordinance. I am happy to see this noise ordinance reinstated. I believe it is needed, as some people must be forced to be responsible, and respectful towards others. Finally, I would like to thank the council, staff, and the PD for your service to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, an in-person public comment. Emma, would you like to come and address the council? And then just push that button. Yeah. Oh, one more time. There you go.
Good evening, council members. My name is Emma. I'm a resident of Sequim, living on Hammond Street. I'm here to speak about the frequent and disruptive noise disturbances I've been experiencing in my neighborhood as it relates to the new noise control ordinance. Sorry, nerves. I don't like public speaking. I'd like to share a brief 15-second clip recorded on May 20th, which demonstrates the typical burst of loud music that frequently disrupts my home. While these instances may not always add up to 20 minutes in a single day, the frequent, unpredictable nature of these disturbances significantly impacts my peace and comfort within my home. These short, loud bursts of music often happen multiple times throughout the day, making it difficult to find consistent relief. The unpredictable pattern of the noise prevents me from enjoying my home and makes it difficult to plan around. This affects my ability to work and enjoy my home in reasonable peace. I ask the council to consider how the ordinance can address these frequent short-term disturbances, even if they do not always meet the 20-minute minimum threshold. So I'd like to play a clip because it's hard to say with words what I experience. And that audio was captured approximately 100 feet away from the origination location. Thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate your efforts to create a noise ordinance that effectively protects our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A question for clarification?
Sure.
Emma, thank you very much for suffering through that for us. You did really well. Can you clarify, is that a passing vehicle that you're experiencing, or this is a neighborhood noise? Okay, thank you.
And for the record, she said neighborhood noise. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll pay better attention next time.
Okay.
Sorry,
Oh,
just
sorry.
for clarification to council, I think when the clerk said for the record, it was for the
Audio.
recording, not for council. So
Just trying to capture everything on the mic, that's all. Okay, next we alternate back. So we have a person virtually who wishes to speak. David, if you could unmute your device and address the council, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just 3 brief things. I'm looking at the meeting notes from a previous council meeting, so I'm not sure if I have the latest version of the noise ordinance, but I'm looking at maximum permissible noise levels. Items 7 and 8 seem to be redundant, so I'm not sure if there's any reason why we have those, unless number 8, which talks specifically about audio equipment, supersedes 7. And if that's the case, in number 8, I was surprised when I read it to find out that if somebody is playing loud music on their own property, that they're not violating any law. It says sound from audio equipment, including but not limited to tape players, radios, and compact disc players, operated at a volume as to be audible greater than 50 feet from the source, and is not operated on the property of the operator. So if it is operated or operated on the property of the operator, then this doesn't apply. And that's very concerning because on my street, we have people that play loud music at wee hours in the morning, and they're 8 houses down from me. And let's see here. Also in number 8, it talks about having 2 or more property owners contact, call in and complain. And I'd like to see us change that to property owners, property owners or possessors. 58% of the residences in my block alone are occupied not by the owner, but by renters. And so there could be a whole bunch of them at one area that don't hear the noise that I'm hearing, and they're not going to call in. Or if they do and they're not the owners, then it's not going to matter. So those are the things, the redundancy question, the question on number 8 about the fact that if a person is making noise on their own property, item 8 on the list, it doesn't apply to them, and changing owner to property owner and possessor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're switching back to in-person, and I had next on the sign-in sheet Lex and Carla. Would you like to speak at this time?
Do I need to press anything so that you can hear me? Okay, thank you very much. Just to let you know, my husband and I have been up here 44 years. We subscribe to both the Gazette and the PDN, and this meeting was the first that we knew that the noise ordinance was even being looked at. We've had a situation since December of 2017, is that correct? Where we had new neighbors move in. They said they were moving in with 3 dogs. They moved in with 5 dogs. And after a couple of months, they started breeding those dogs. And at the time, it took me about 18 months to get in touch with Lisa Hopper because we were trying to dialogue with them, and it became apparent that that was not going to work. And I also asked Lisa about a noise ordinance because their dogs at that time were barking incessantly from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. And not only the adult dogs, but all the puppies that they were raising to sell. They are still noisy. And this is not the end of the world. This is not Ukraine. This is not Israel. It's not, it may fall under mental health issues. I'm not going to make that judgment, although I could. But it is definitely an issue for our whole neighborhood. And these people have had experience with enough of the neighbors that none of the neighbors will come and testify. They're very afraid of this couple that live across the fence from us. Their dogs are within probably 12 feet of our property line when they start this noise. You can almost set Big Ben by it, 4:56 in the morning. And I don't know how reasonable it is to ask people that it's difficult to have a reasonable conversation with because they are unreasonable. But we would really, really appreciate it to know if there are time constraints on how many hours per day we have to put up with this. And we've been doing it for years and years. And people have said, well, why don't you just sell your house and move? And my response to that is that that could be a very viable option at some point, but there are some other issues on hand as far as like some threats and some things that were posted online. Am I done? Okay. Thank you. Oh, the location. You want my location? My husband and I live at 61 East Quail Lane, and you can look up all the police reports because of the issue with the neighbors. And I'm willing to answer any questions you have either now or after the meeting, whatever is best for everybody involved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I switch back to virtual attendees. And at this time, I see no one virtually who wishes to speak. So I will go back to in person. And I believe, Eric, did you wish to come up and speak? Okay.
My name is Eric Miller. I live at 452 West Hammond Street. You already heard my neighbor. The problem is frequency. You don't address frequency. What's frequency? Too bad the policeman ain't here. He wants everything 50 feet. Does anybody in this room know how many feet it takes a 20 hertz waveform? 56.5 feet. Well, you can't hear 20 hertz. I can't even hear 2 or 3 octaves higher than that. The problem is, if you can't feel it, it ain't music. That's my opinion. Now, whether it bothered her, all she has to do is call me up. She had her sister on her phone from Hawaii call me up. Why doesn't the neighbor just come over and say, hey, turn your shit down? That's all that has to happen. Close the windows. My garage doors were open. I had it cranked up. I was having a good time, okay? Is that legal in America still? I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, going back to virtual speakers, at this time, I see nobody wishing to speak either on the Zoom or on phone. So does, do you wish to speak, Lisa? Okay, sure, come on up.
Lisa Gilbert, never done this before, terrified. I just moved into the Sequim city limits on East Fur Street. And right after that, the detour went in. And so it was just constant traffic. And I am curious, there's a speed limit sign right out my window that's, I don't know, 20, 25, something like that. No one goes that. I mean, nobody. And I'm just curious, it is louder, you know, when trucks go fast, construction trucks and mulch trucks and all kinds of things. And I'm curious why that isn't enforced, because I think that would lower the noise. And I admit I haven't read the documents, and so I'm at a little disadvantage of what it says. But the thing about having 2 neighbors call in, sometimes the noise is like between 10 and 11 at night. Who wants to annoy the neighbor and say, hey, you know, do you hear it too, or whatever? So I'm just wondering about that. And I too am distressed or more about having purchased this home in Sequim, because it's just feels lawless, you know, no speed enforcement, no noise enforcement, and neighbors with dogs that cry, fixing cars at night and revving engines until 11. I can't sleep in my master bedroom. It's just too loud. And So getting a little emotional here because when money's involved and investments involved, I can't afford to move. I just bought this house, so I'm kind of stuck. And I appreciate you guys doing something to enforce the speed, enforce the noise, enforce the dogs. We need our sleep. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have some people online wishing to speak. I'm going to start with Taylor Ann. You can unmute yourself and address the council. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Taylor Ann Vaughn. I live at 487 Olympic Ridge Road right here in town. I would like to ask the town to take steps to help protect our children. I find that there are a few things that are going on in our town that we could take steps to prevent children being in a position as they are right now to be groomed and be hurt. First and foremost.
Ma'am?
Yes?
Oh, this is a public hearing comments for the noise ordinance. Is this in reference to that?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so your comments are reference to the noise ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in our town, we're going to have a pride event. I think that not only is it going to be very loud and it is going to disturb the peace, I also believe that it puts our children in danger. So I think we could really kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. If we could take a stand against the Pride Parade, we would not only decrease the amount of noise pollution within our neighborhoods, but we would we would help every one of our future children. We would prevent child grooming and the celebration of degeneracy. And so I
You want
think
to
that
cut that off? That goes outside the bounds of this comment section and is inappropriate.
We will continue with the comments related to the noise ordinance public hearing. Next up, we have Samuel. Samuel, if you could unmute your microphone and address about the noise ordinance, please.
Yes, the noise ordinance. That would be fantastic. That's what I'm calling in for. My name is Samuel Weissman. And do I need to give a specific address or can I just say I live in the east side? Is that fine?
That's
I'm
fine.
not in these. All right, thank you. Yeah, I wish that for the noise ordinance, the police officers and law enforcement in this city would do an actual equal job of treating these noise violations instead of, cherry picking which areas that they want to actually police. There's so many weeknights where myself and my children, we can't get any sleep. It's 2 a.m. My neighbors are blasting their mariachi music. All you hear is trumpets going. They've got a big barbecue, 30 people outside, all drinking Bud Light or Modelo. And it's just ridiculous. I can call the police 3-4 times a month when it gets to the point where, I'm red-eyed, about to tear all the hair out of my head because I can't get any sleep. My daughter's crying because all she hears is trumpets and all you hear is La Cucaracha playing in the fucking background. But then, you go over into the more affluent areas and the police are there within 5 minutes of you making a noise complaint because some teenagers are having a house party on a Saturday. Now, why are they enforcing the noise complaints and violations more rigorously, my apologies, in affluent neighborhoods and on the weekends when people are usually cutting loose? But I've got these beaner neighbors next door playing mariachi.
Okay, we'll cut that off as well. So it's unfortunate that this is the 3rd time that some unfortunate individuals think it's funny to call him with that type of hate speech and disrupt these proceedings. Issue an apology on at least myself, I'm sure the council as well. And it's unfortunate we can't pre-screen these calls to deter that type of disgusting behavior. So we shall continue and hopefully we won't have any more of that.
Next up on the public comment about the noise ordinance, Matthew, if you could please unmute your microphone and share with council your thoughts on the noise ordinance.
Yes, good evening, City Council. Am I coming through all right? Yes. My name is Matthew North. I live at 88 Mountain View Drive. As far as the noise ordinance goes, I think it's rather unnecessary for most of our citizens. I think we're, pretty well behaved, or however you want to consider in that aspect of things, except for really the niggers that just care.
Oh, God. I'm going to put us at recess for 5 minutes. Everybody ready? Okay, are we ready? Okay, I'm going to call us back to session. And it's unfortunate again that we've had the fourth time, some racist individuals have found it particularly funny that they could spread their hate online, but we will not let such hate and bigotry disrupt these proceedings and be allowed to have free quorum. So I am going to use my authority as the chair, and we're going to close public comment because we have gotten off topic. So I am now closing public comment portion of this hearing. I want to thank everybody who provided public comment. So we will now move to council discussion. Is there any public or council discussion? If not, I do have some.
I'm trying to, please, I'd like to hear yours, but I would just sort of kind of regathering my thoughts after the distraction of the last couple of spurious comments. So.
I'm just going to go down the list, Christina, since you're it tonight. So we'll start with Mr. Wright's comments with the traffic issues. I'm sure have you spoken with him regarding it previously?
I have not, and I am unaware if Chief Hill has.
Chief Hill has. Okay. Moving down, I'm just writing down the ones that I know had specific questions. David, the caller on item 7 and 8 about the redundancy and the 3 questions he had on there, if you remember which ones he was referring to.
I believe that I remember what they are, and I'm going to do my best to respond to them in accordance with my memory. So from my perspective, 7 and 8 are not redundant, because if you look at the language there, and the caller admitted they did not have the current draft, but it says the creation of frequent, repetitive, or continuous sounds which emanate from any building, structure, or property which can be heard at a distance greater than 50 feet from the source. So that one, they're talking about emanating from the source at more than 50 feet, which could impact some of the situations the callers described tonight. As the caller pointed out in section 8, that was from a source that was not from the property, right? So you've got 7 deals with source of noise emanating from the property. 8 responds to noise that is not coming from the property, if that makes sense. And then, their other question or concern, as I recall, was that addressing renters, and as previously mentioned in our cover sheet, that yes, we did make sure to expressly include renters and other residents of the area.
And they're concerned about item 8 about it.
I think what they were concerned about in item 8 is covered in 7, because that comes from the property, and
Yes.
8 would be like a car driving down the road with loud
Yes.
Okay,
music,
so that might
right?
go and address Mr. Wright's concerns.
So Mr. Wright's concerns, I didn't catch all of that. I believe it had more to do with just cars driving down the road. Is that correct?
I believe that's what I caught of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not going to be speaking for Chief Hill and his experience on this, but my suspicion is that if it's an individual car driving down the road, that's not going to be something that would be enforceable, even if we wrote this in here, because the enforceability goes to the person who is doing the action, not somebody who is going and just by virtue of driving down the road that they're going to be deemed causing a disturbance. So, while we respect and appreciate all of the things that people who are bothered or concerned or otherwise about noise levels, we also have to look at, the realities of modern living conditions as well. And so if it's just somebody who is driving down the road and has a legitimate business, I don't think that would be enforceable. But if somebody who is, I would suspect that if somebody who is intentionally driving around a neighborhood, blasting music, all of those other types of things, that is something that could be addressed under this current ordinance, in my opinion.
I understood that because he referenced the whole waveform theory and so on, that, sometimes when I'm stopped on Washington at a stoplight and there's a car with an extremely loud bass 2 or 3 cars away, and I think, how in the world can you stand to be in that space? Because it's rocking my world. I just wonder if that's the thought, that the person driving the vehicle may not be aware of the impact of that waveform, I guess is the term. I'm not familiar with that theory, but.
Right. So,
okay.
So, and, again, that goes to looking at it from an enforcement lens. If somebody is just passing through a neighborhood and they're not intentionally, going in there to cause problems, do we want to be a city who enforces that, right? Because we would be enforcing that conduct upon that individual against others who may or may not be bothered by that. But if we're talking about somebody who is, wanting to do that frequent, repetitive, all of those types of things, then I think that is exactly what we intend for this ordinance to do.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mayor, may I address a couple of other things that I think some of the speakers were not quite accurate on, and I wanted to dispel any issue there. So first off, the ordinance does not require 2 people to call in to the police before the police will be sent out to go investigate it. It only takes 1 person, but in order for it to lodge a formal complaint or a penalty or other things like that, the police would go out and ask adjacent neighbors in the area if you have been bothered by it. It doesn't mean that you need to call in at 2 o'clock in the morning, but let's say, for example, your neighbor calls into the police department. Police go out and investigate and say they happen to knock on your door and they say, hey, are you being disturbed by this? You can answer the door and you can say yes, if in fact you are, and that would satisfy the criteria. Does that make sense? Okay. Sir, your comments are not being picked up on the microphone, and public comment has been closed by the mayor. So then your comments regarding frequency were noted in the public hearing. So there was that, and then there was also one more that has, 20 minutes. To be considered a violation, the noise must last at least 20 minutes and occur within the same area and adversely affect 2 or more property owners. The noise does not need to be constant. So again, that goes to the repetitive, consistent type thing where somebody is doing it to just agitate things or to cause problems. It doesn't mean that somebody has to suffer through 20 minutes of what could qualify as a disturbance before there is a breach, if that makes sense. And I think that's all I have, unless council or the mayor have any more questions.
Any other questions?
I just had a comment. I was noticing in this, in the case of the barking dogs, that it makes a note here under the second page, 832-0301, that noise originating from privately owned dogs on their owner's property is regulated under the municipal code 6.04.030. So it seems like, if that's what I understand, that's already been covered.
That is correct. And since we're on that, I think one of the callers also mentioned people working on vehicles late at night. That would also be addressed under 3, the creation of frequent, repetitive, or continuous noise in connection with starting, operation, repair, rebuilding, or testing of any motor vehicle, et cetera, et cetera.
And I was interested in hearing, in response to Ms. Gilbert's comments about the detour and the truck traffic and so on Fur while we're in this construction. Is there a timeline on that? Can reassure her on the limits?
A timeline
on the detouring, apart from the enforcing speeding, which is a separate issue, of course. But
if your question is about the length of time on the detour, I'm going to defer to the city manager.
I think it's over, right? Yeah, I was going to say the detour is over. Yeah, that was when they were doing the course roundabout and all that's done. So,
okay, yeah. So it becomes a speed enforcement issue rather than noise. Okay.
Councilor Downer?
I just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to remind people that trucks cannot be on residential streets unless they are dropping off or picking up a delivery. So that can be reported to the police. And it has to be a truck route. Truckers cannot take shortcuts up and down East Spruce Street or up and down First Street. They have to be on that street to pick up an item or deliver an item, period. Thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we will now move to council action. Are we ready for a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to adopt, with appreciation to staff for the amendments that have been made, I'd move to adopt Ordinance 2024-0, adopting new SMC Chapter 8.32, noise control.
I second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes.
On behalf of Chief Hill, thank you, council.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still kind of irked over what happened during public comment. And I just want to continue to make another statement that I think if council wants to affirm, just to reiterate something, and I think that, I think that we firmly believe in that in fostering a safe and inclusive environment where, hate speech has no place, and that I think we should stand against any attempt to grant form to people that promote such rhetoric, and that our commitment to respect and dignity.
Make a point of order real quick? It sounds like these comments can be made during open discussion.
I'm just going to make it right now. Yeah. So I'm sorry. If you want to call me out, then that's fine. But
so sorry, council, if I could interject, just know that we are not the only jurisdiction that has been addressed, having to endure these issues. And there has been some communication from other jurisdictions about, some possible solutions for that to help deter it, right? Obviously, it's not going to solve it, but I can certainly work with the clerk's office in developing those types of options later.
We're going to be
And-
at recess for 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to call us back to order again. So, if council. Okay, we're gonna call our meeting back to order here. Does council have an issue with me finishing the statement? Anything? Okay. So again, this is in response to the unfortunate events from the public hearing. And I know if council wants to affirm the statement that, again, we firmly believe in fostering a safe and inclusive environment where, hate speech has no place, and that we firmly stand against granting, forum to those that promote such. And our commitment to respect and dignity for all remain unwavering, and we do not condone such behavior that undermines these values. So I just think it needs to be hammered home time and time again, because unfortunately these events continue to happen. And moving forward, we will look at ways to prevent such disgusting behavior from occurring in the future. So while it's hard to, screen calls online like that, it's difficult, even in person. We will take steps to address that issue in the future moving forward. So if anybody else on council has anything to say on the subject, otherwise we will continue meeting. Vicki.
I just want to thank you for handling that. Hearing those things are very upsetting, and we can feel them coming on. So I appreciate you cutting them off and keep trying to keep this a safe place. And so thank you.
Likewise.
Councilor Downer.
Yes, I think I speak for everybody when I say this council is looking forward to reading our Acknowledgement of Pride Month proclamation at our next meeting on June 24th. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 8, reports, youth liaisons.
All right, can you guys hear me? For the purposes of the record, this is Georgia Bullard speaking. So I'm going to talk a lot about graduation. So for the Sequim High School graduation is this Friday, June 14th. It's from 6 to 7:30 p.m. You guys are all invited. And I would encourage you just to show up and celebrate our seniors. We have over 150 seniors graduating this year, and they've all worked really hard for the past 4 years just to be able to walk across the stage. The last day of school is on June 18th, so seniors get to leave a couple days early, so they're all excited about that. Everyone else has to be in school for about 3 more days. Our scholarship award night was this past Wednesday or Thursday? It was this past Wednesday, and altogether, the community of Sequim and Duclaum County awarded our graduating seniors $1.4 million in scholarships to go to colleges all across the United States. So we just wanted to thank our community because we have such a gracious community here in Sequim, and you guys are all so supportive of everyone and what everyone wants to do. Our senior recognition assembly was last Friday, and that was where we recognized our seniors. We recognized exemplary students in all of our departments. And yeah, so expect more news about that through the Sequim Gazette and other publications upcoming. And here's Malia.
Hello. For the purpose of the record, this is Malia Nelson. So all of the clubs at the high school are going through changes in leadership due to the new school year. So most clubs have elected new officers. So you will be seeing new leaders on our clubs. Interact Club is going to be putting up flags for the 4th of July. So near 4th of July, you'll start seeing a lot more America patriotic theme around town. But that's most of the events that are going to be going on during the summer. The community is going to be busy putting on Lavender Festival, so not a lot of high school sponsored events. This past month, track went to state, and our freshman Claire Torella won high jump, first place. And Garrett Little went to state for boys tennis, and he won second. So congrats to those guys.
All right, thank you, City Manager.
Thank you, Councilor, Mayor, and Council. As you can see on the agenda, we called out the traffic signal synchronization or that project update and gave it a separate item. As I've done or tried to do the last several months, I think maybe since this new year, things that I hear from you all that you're hearing from your constituents, I try to give them a place. I know it, and I tried to put it on the agenda so that the public, if they have an interest in that, will be there as well. But this is one more thing I think I've heard from you all about relative to where are we at, what did you buy, when is it implemented, what's it supposed to do. So with that as a lead in, Nick, our city engineer, will be presenting, giving you a brief update on this so that you can answer those questions and feel comfortable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. For record purposes, Nick Dostey, city engineer. So as Matt said, we've been phasing in our new traffic control signal system. And he requested that I give a brief discussion, brief update on where we were, where we're at, how we got here, What have we been doing? So for those who don't know, the previous, or I guess we can call the existing condition of the traffic lights, was an antiquated induction loop system, meaning that when you pull up to the stop bar, a switch is triggered that then signals the light to cycle, and there were hard times set at each light. There was no coordination. There was no opportunity to coordinate the lights at the intersection or throughout the corridor. So the lights were in free for all, and the first come, first serve. So if there's a red light at Washington and you're trying to head east-west, there could be green, red, green, green all throughout town. A good example of coordination of lights is downtown Port Angeles. So if you hit a green light coming into the downtown corridor or coming out and you're traveling the speed limit, you should not have to step on your brakes on First or Front Street to get into or out of town. So that's the perfect example of light coordination. So recognizing the inconsistency, and with the motivator being to move traffic east-west on Washington to clear that corridor, we approached a consultant to provide new cameras, radios, and controllers to allow that to happen, to remove the antiquated induction loop system and give us a more digital control over the system itself. So just a little bit of a timeline. The purchase order was executed in December of 22. Cameras and radios for the cameras were installed in June of 23. Controllers for the cameras and monitoring for the cameras was in August of 23. In September of 23, those components were programmed and those components were in the cabinet. October of 23 was when we got the workstation. So that allows us to access the cameras. We don't have to go out to each individual cabinet to make changes. We can make all changes here at the Civic Center. And from December of 23 till last May, my engineers have been getting training along with one of the IT staff on how to utilize the software, the controllers, the malfunction monitoring units, all the components in the cabinet that got upgraded and updated, how to use that, how to make, how to generate reports on the live traffic data, how to analyze those reports, with the hope that eventually, as we continue training, we have another one scheduled here in the next month or so, that we can make dynamic revisions to the system. So instead of having to go to the cabinet and make one adjustment to one light, we can make adjustments to the whole corridor, right? Again, with the emphasis being that east-west traffic on Washington Street has priority. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot version there. If anyone has any specific questions or concerns.
What consideration is given to north and south traffic during the school drop-off and school pickup? And like I was coming here last meeting, so 2 weeks ago at 3 o'clock at the stoplight at 3rd, and the buses were backed up all the way from 3rd Avenue to the football field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great question. So with the system we have now, we can make changes on those specific intersections for the times needed. Currently, the timing cycles we have are strictly based on average daily travel. That is just if someone goes through the intersection, the ticker hits 1, and the person behind them ticker hits 2, and so on. So that's what generated the cycling times to clear the east and west traffic in Washington. So with where we're at now, since we can not only generate the reports, but understand the reports, and just having local knowledge like school times, like understanding that SQUIM is unique and that our peak hours are not morning and evening, but in the afternoon, right? So we can take that knowledge based on what the consultant engineered for us to now make those changes and be able to fine tune instead of the old system, which had mercury switches, would catch on fire during parades. So right now, with where we're at, is getting up to date with the training and making sure that we can generate reports. We send those reports to our consultant, and then the final step is to have that person come back. They will run a full diagnostic again, because the training in May exposed some errors in our cycling between pedestrian push buttons and traffic and things like that. So we're iterating to full independence from needing the consultant, and we are not far away. We're getting the data, we're collecting the data, we're reporting the data, analyzing the data. So it's all coming to a head right now.
Does the stoplight on Hendrickson by the middle school, is that any part of this?
No.
Okay.
No. So
it has its own special issues.
Correct. So 5th and Hendrickson, 5th and Fur, they are actually operating on free. We made that switch. It was on a specific traffic pattern and phase split, and having the ability to turn it to free, we said, okay, let's try this, as one of the first measures to see if we were continuing to get any complaints. And we switched it to free and haven't heard much for that. Also, just for transparency purposes, Preston, Washington has not been adjusted, and the light by QFC has not been adjusted. So all of their lights have this Washington-focused east-west corridor pattern.
Just like my hot topics.
So I'm here.
At SQUIM in Washington, you have the left turn lanes that go first. That won't ever happen at the other, at 3rd, 5th, and 7th?
So if memory serves, there is no dedicated left turn at this time. It's just a yield as you go. So that's part of the capital projects that you'll be seeing is our intersection improvements. And so hopefully, if we can find the funding, we can make those improvements to have dedicated left turns. So to answer bluntly, at this time, we don't have the channelizing to do that. And we don't have a traffic pattern or phasing plan to incorporate a dedicated left turn. But once we make those physical changes to the intersection, we can incorporate that into the phasing plan pretty seamlessly.
And what about punching through, is it Hemlock or Hammond through to 9th Avenue? Is that was on the list, wasn't it?
Punching Hammond through.
Yeah, that's the one
By the
we've
healing
been talking
clinic?
about, by the healing
So it
clinic.
goes over by Costco?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's in discussion.
From 7th, okay.
Yeah.
So it's shifted out on the list. It's on the list. It's in the what we call the out years. So as we march through that timeline, the ticker tape will roll, and you'll see that.
Because that will also take pressure off those lights.
Absolutely. And
the south side being
one of the reasons you can say a project like that gets bumped is based on our priority matrix, the Prairie Complete Streets project that we're going to be pursuing funding for will also be that relief. And that's the major corridor that we're looking to get that Complete Streets project done on, to relieve that immediate traffic from the highway and from the southern portion of town to move east-west.
Does that include a stoplight on Prairie and SQUIM Avenue?
It definitely could. We're going to be doing level of service analysis for all proposed intersections. So, I mean, we're looking at, or we will be looking at, the use of lights, use of roundabouts, stop control as a value assessment for the project.
Thank you.
So Nick, I probably shouldn't call you out, and I think Sarah's not here, and she and I have had several conversations. Maybe Amy can help us because my memory is not great. But so with this project came cameras, new wiring, towers, laptops. But I believe the boxes still at many of these intersections have very old. Are you up on this at all, Amy? Or anyway, I think you will see where, and those are, I think, WashDOT's hardware, old hardware. So we are still trying to update some of those boxes, and they're very expensive. But that's not stopping us from what you just heard, but there is more to do. It's very old infrastructure still here. Does anybody, Sarah and I have had this conversation, but she's not here. Amy, do you know any of that?
I can
maybe you know, Nick, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So are you looking for an exact cost?
No, I just know it's big. Every box was big.
So that goes into the whole intersection project, as far as, because I guess a good way to think about it is yes, we have new cameras, which weren't there. We have radios to relay that information to our workstation. So what Matt is talking about are the actual cabinets themselves. And they have integrated workings to allow all the components to talk. So we tore out all the old components and put new components in. So I guess, or another way to look at it is, we put a brand new V8 into an old chassis. And so now, since we can get that to work, we can get the lights to work, and we can make adjustments and generate reports and collect all this great data. Well, now with part of the intersection improvements, we have to get that chassis fixed. We have to update that. So that's what Matt is talking about, is that the physical upgrade of those cabinets and the integrated components that allow those internal parts of the engine to talk to each other. And so that's just a supply chain issue above all else, because a lot of signals are, and a lot of municipalities are experiencing kind of these new updated components in old systems. And well, how do you make them talk temporarily before we can get new ones in? And so it's not specific to SQUIM. And I mean, maybe to put a degree of validation, Port Angeles, they're updating all their intersections. They're going to be doing the same thing, and they're going to be using the same system that we are. So it's across the board about the effort and the need for those new components and new cabinets.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And of course, Paul and Amy, thank you. So just a couple other quick departmental updates. First from finance, I think many of you were copied on the email from Sue regarding the federal audit that we had, because we received some federal monies, and so it required an audit. Anyway, it was done in one day, 0 findings, 0 recommendations. And there was a quick call last week on Friday, kind of sharing that with leadership. So, congratulations once again to our finance department and to Sue's leadership. I think you all have seen the press release relative to you have purchased a new park. So thank you for that support. It's beautiful, and I don't follow social media a lot, but I have heard from our communications director that the talk is very favorable. Your residents are just real thrilled that you have made that commitment and priority. So thank you for that, and you should feel good about that. That was long and some kind of expensive, drawn out process. So thank you for that support. And then I guess my last comment from finance is, believe it or not, we've already started the 2025 budget process, and so the departments are starting to work on that. And you'll see the full calendar and schedule for that, but we don't bring anything to you till the late fall. So, but we're starting. So from community development, of course, you met Lindsay, our new director, at your last meeting. I think you also hopefully have been inundated with both press releases and emails and social media relative to the open houses, the comp plan open houses at Guy Cole this tomorrow through Thursday. So the next 3 days. It's got a if you look at the flyer that was attached to your email, you'll see that some days they start at 2 to 5, and then there's always a 6 o'clock presentation with kind of visioning going up till 8 o'clock every night. On Wednesday, they start at 10, and on Thursday at 10 too. So anyway, it's a full day, and most of our staff will be rotating through there. Anyway, I'm really excited about that, and certainly your presence and input would be welcome. And I think that was, I'll save the next announcement till next time we meet. I wanted to update you from Human Resources. We have 2 really great interns for the summer. One named Julia from Germany, and one who's from Sequim but happens to go to college at Iowa State, and he's in engineering. She's in HR. So we have an HR intern, wonderful individual, and then Kevin just started today with our engineering department. So he's in his final year out there in Iowa, but grew up here and graduated from Sequim High School and whatnot. So really, really great experience. From the police department, which is where we keep our emergency kind of under that org ID, we have our emergency plan and staff and whatnot. So I just wanted you to know that we're working hard on updating and upgrading all of our emergency management plan, our operations center, and that whole organization, putting a lot of effort into retraining all of the staff that will support and staff our EOC if that is needed. Anyway, it's an elaborate and laborsome process, but we're really excited about all of the training. It's all online. It's FEMA. It will allow us to be reimbursed from the government should we have to staff this. And so I just wanted you to know that we're doing a lot of coordination. Everything we're doing is in coordination and collaboration with both the fire district and, of course, with the county, who coordinates with the state. So John is one of our leaders in that. So anyway, it's a busy and full schedule, but I have heard from Fire District 3 that because of our efforts and our commitments, that we're in the top 90% of any city in the state. So that's rewarding. From Public Works, just a couple announcements. So we have,
Matt?
oh, excuse me.
Did we participate in any after action reporting from the pandemic? Was that done at just at the county level?
No, I believe it. I wasn't here for that, but I believe we had that at Guy Cole. Didn't we do yeah, I think we had a whole day down and took a lot of notes on that. Yes.
Can you tell me where I can find that and the recommendations?
No, but I can certainly look it up. I do remember being there, and we had some evaluators that sat in the back that took notes of it all, and they were trained emergency folks that contribute to that. So I think I can find that for you. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So from Public Works, just so you know, they submitted 2 different grants in this last week, one for safe routes to school and a different one for EV charging program. So that's good. There's talk, what you all saw with when Megan presented the water plan, kind of our water system and the percentages of water rights and how much we were using as the city grows and some of our projections with all that. Anyway, that's being also coordinated with the WSU Master Gardeners, and I'm working with Harmony and had some conversations on that today. You also would be pleased to report, I haven't seen it yet myself, but we probably ought to organize a tour of this. We got finally, after your support, our sewer camera van finally arrived last week. We had the crew had 3 days of training on that. A lot of sophisticated technology on that. Big ROI for that investment, and I'll know more about the functionality when I actually see it and meet with the crew. And I believe this week you also supported a vac truck that was 2 years ago that finally, due to supply chain, is due to arrive this week. did it come today? Okay, I knew it was supposed to come today. I didn't want to make that comment, but so we got 2 really new upgraded vehicles for the public works staff. And finally, I have to apologize to the mayor and deputy mayor and maybe Kathy, whoever. So in our last agenda planning meeting, we were trying to coordinate a work session. I think you asked for 2 work sessions, one with the school district board, and then one that I requested to be able to fine tune the work plan around your priorities. We've already submitted to you. We had a retreat and tried to get very specific about how we might accomplish your priorities and came up with kind of an operational work plan. We've sent that to you, and we were just going to have an hour and work. I said, anytime you guys want to do that, I'm ready to go. And I believe in the agenda planning, someone said, well, let's not worry about this Monday. Just let's give you some time and just do it next one. Unfortunately, I just realized this afternoon I'm out of town and I don't want to miss that. So I probably need to bring that back to you. At the rest of the other 3, you have 2 meetings in July and you have 1 in August. Any of those will work, but I promised my son I'd move him and his wife across the country for law school, and I can't back out of that at this point. So if I'll leave that to maybe the next agenda planning or whatever you want, or you can decide tonight under discussion if you want to lock that down. But I apologize that there's a conflict there. So with that, Mayor and Council, that's all I had, unless you had some questions.
All right. Committee reports.
Thank you. I was able to attend the county homelessness task force for the first time since I've been on the council and appointed to that committee. It has been meeting quarterly, and it took some time to be formally appointed and then welcomed onto the committee. So that was last week. Work has been initiated on a renewed 5-year plan, and the focus seems to be on clarity of actionable versus aspirational goals. I applaud that. There was a new member added, sent to the county commissioners for formal approval that would fill an open position on the task force. I was sobered as just a piece of information to learn that for every $100 of rent increase in the state of Washington, homelessness goes up 30%. That was a stunning statistic to me. And when you think about how much rent has gone up in the last several years, this is not just a SQUIM or a county issue. It certainly is a national issue. But I was very impressed with the meeting. It was very, very well run. It was a solid agenda, a well-prepared presentation. So I'm grateful to be on that committee.
Councilor Downer.
Yes, I just wanted a quick update on the microgrid that we might be getting out in Squim Bay Road. It looks like right now, because the range for temporarily, it's in the infancy of scientific research, the range will not be that far, and probably they will be the Pacific Northwest laboratory will be benefiting from this energy source. It's like a wireless type of energy. Eventually, it would be great to put in an emergency center, a school, or a hospital, and that's what they would be working towards. The Mac Clinic has a fairly new mobile unit. They go out to Discovery Bay. They would like to park it someplace in Forks if they could find a piece of land. The state law does not allow them to leave it stocked. So whenever they use it, it has to be restocked each time it's used. And 2 Saturdays ago, I attended the state emergency management team's talk on wildfires at the Guy Cole Center. And as you know, our town has very few ways in and out. And I will get the website for you, but if we all sign up for telephone alerts, when we get the alert, if there's a wildfire and we need to evacuate, they will tell you which direction to go on 101 so that people do not go towards the fire, because from where we sit, you can't even tell. So that's all on that, and I'll keep you updated on that, and thank you very much.
I attended the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting last Monday. The grants are in the consent agenda. Just want to report that the committee was very carefully looking at funds because we allotted a lot of them out to the Irrigation Festival and Lavender Festival. So making sure we have enough money to get through the rest of the year. But things are going well. And then Harmony, Councilor Rutter couldn't be here, but she asked me to share a survey that the Washington State LGBTQ Commission has a community survey out, and she just wanted me to share. It's lgbtq.wa.gov/survey. It's the first of its kind statewide survey, opened on June 1st, and aims to understand the characteristics and experiences of LGBTQ plus people in Washington State. The research is funded by the Washington State LGBTQ Commission and is being designed for LGBTQ plus Washingtonians by LGBTQ plus Washingtonians. The LGBTQ Commission will use the findings to inform their policy recommendations to the Office of the Governor and the Washington State Legislature. Survey participants will be eligible for a raffle drawing. All survey responses are 100% anonymous. I don't know how those two things go together, but I bet they do. No identifying information will be collected. We encourage our local SQUIM residents to make their voices heard and help inform future policy decisions in Washington State. It's lgbtq.wa.gov/ this one, survey. And I can forward it to Amy too.
Anyone else? All right. Moving on to consent agenda. City Clerk.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have item 9A, claim vouchers totaling $1,140,430.17. Item B, the City Council meeting minutes from May 28th, 2024. Item C, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting minutes and grants. Item D, the General Records Management Policy adoption. That's a resolution. Item E, SMC Chapter 12.04 Sidewalk Use Code Amendment. That's an ordinance. Item F, SMC Chapter 12.08 Sidewalk Construction Code Amendment. That's an ordinance. You had made a motion to remove item 9G, so that will be discussed later. Item H, the Amendment 2 to the Contract for Solid Waste Services. And item I, the on-call contract amendment for materials testing. Item J, an Olympic Theater Arts survey and letter of support request. Item K, the SQUIM School District and the Peninsula Tennis Club letter of support request.
Move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Oh,
Nice job on the letters of support.
thank you. Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right, item 10A, the 2025 to 2030 Capital Improvement Program update, first touch. Nick.
While Amy is bringing up the PowerPoint, just to be clear, there was a recording that offered a more in-depth review of the CIP as presented. So I will be doing my best to give just a brief kind of up-to-date in the 25-26 and try to explore a little bit more into the idea of in the previous year, or sorry, last year, the major lift was running all projects through the priority matrix. So now that we have that priority list of projects, we really were focusing on the funding aspect of not only the projects we have going on right now, but proposed and future priority projects. So the major kind of planning aspects were continued searching for funding for the city shop project, completing the deep well project, and managing the funding that we acquired for the West Squim Bay corridor project, which does include a regional sewer lift station. So those three projects in and of themselves, and how we manage the 25, 26 and projected out to 2030, not only workload, but financial load as well. And that's what structured what you see in front of you. And so that's why this slide is included here. So the process is very similar, but instead of running projects through a priority matrix or redoing the priority matrix, we kept the projects that we have and shuffled them based on what funding we were seeking in 25, 26, and what we think will be available in the coming years. So this is mainly an overview for the new council members, kind of what the CIP is and what goes into it. So the CIP is a scheduling document. It plays into the annual budget. It has to be concurrent with the comprehensive plan, and it provides details for planning of city's infrastructure with streets, utilities, things of that nature. And the components there you can see are the individual system plans for water, sewer, transportation, our parks and open space plan, and then our stormwater and surface water master plan. So each one of those master plans has a list of capital facilities projects that we ran through the priority matrix to then generate the priorities for our capital improvement program. So diving into the projects here, takeaways and kind of the 25, 26. The heavy hitter is the West Squim Bay corridor improvement for sewer, water, and street. So previous CIPs had this project further out into 27, maybe even into 28. We've shortened that timeline, and through a consultant, took a deep dive into the project costs. So the cost of the project did increase, but also the scope of the project increased based on recent developments and projected developments and updates to design standards. So the price increased, the timeline shortened, and through the help of a consultant, we were able to get full loan funding for the project. So now it's a matter of how do we manage that full funding. You can see the ADA transportation plan that was reprioritized, not based on funding, but based on the fact that we did finish, complete, and implement our ADA transition plan citywide. So knowing that that's going to be a component of funding applications in the future, we prioritize that to 2025 for facilities and parks. Moving forward, capital facilities. This experienced quite a bit of maneuvering. So you can see that there's quite a few additions here. Gerhard Park building removal was added. Citywide security was added. The Guy Cole emergency was added. And so these additions here, as far as citywide security, play into the new infrastructure that we'll be getting with both the deep well and the proposed new lift station, as well as the ADA plans for facilities and admin. You can see two different sets of years there for citywide security. 2025, the most immediate, would be the park and admin facilities, with then water and sewer facilities getting upgrades to security after the completion of the deep well, after the completion of the lift station, so we can do all those at one time. They'll of course have security when they're done. They're not going to be unlocked, But it'll be a coordination effort between the new facilities and the existing ones.
Are the houses on Gerhard Park property, are they uninhabitable? Could we not auction them off and have somebody move them?
So with respect to the houses up here at Gerhard on 3rd Avenue, the houses maybe potentially, but right now we are using the one Rambler style single-story house. We use that for employee housing. But in terms of the 2-story farmhouse, Hannah, I'm looking to Hannah because I do know that there are deed restrictions on that property. And I have a vague memory that that farmhouse was to be used as part of the park. No? Okay. All right. So
I think it was just that we couldn't rent out the house and make money off of it was the deed restriction, right, Hannah? Is that right?
the deed restriction is on the title to the property and the land itself that says if it's not to be used, if we're not going to use the property for park purposes, then we would need to revert it back to, it actually goes to SARC, which is a little bit ironic because SARC isn't really viable, but nonetheless, that is what the deed restriction says. So hopefully that gives a little bit more insight.
Not really, but maybe if I could see the deed or I just feel like that's the ultimate recycling. We have a housing shortage problem and we have an empty house. Why would we take it down and cost $150,000 if we could have somebody use it for housing? I'm done.
Sorry, I was taking some notes. And then, of course, we have our city shop upgrade and expansion. And Megan is working tirelessly to apply for funding. The good news on that one is we do have adequate funding to complete civil work, which we'll be going out to add this year on. But as far as any expansions outside of that, we are exhausting all efforts to try to look for any grants, loans, or combination thereof to keep the project moving forward. So that is still a very high priority for Public Works. Moving into the parks aspect, again, quite a shuffle. We have pickleball added. That is a resurfacing and a splash pad added. Pickleball resurfacing was added because of some funding that we have been made aware of that we just have to wait for the door to open to apply for. So whether that happens in 25 or 26, it is on the schedule as a reminder that we will be looking for funding for it. As far as the immediate 25, 26, we are in the process of developing a plan for the pedestrian bridge crossings. We had originally gone out for an RFP for full bridge replacement, and we are looking to revise that plan just based on some new information and after talking with our maintenance guys. What would they like to see since they'll be using the bridges every day. So really excited to have a more detailed effort on that moving forward. Then we have the Centennial Place construction along with the playground equipment at Margaret Kerner. So you can notice that those are italicized and red. So as we move through, the italicized numbers are identified as unfunded. We may know of a local fund or state fund, but haven't quite looked into it or done a dive into what it qualifies for. But you can see the italicized red indicates that, yes, it is unfunded, but red indicates unsecured. So we either have an application identified or an application submitted for a portion of funding there. And so the playground equipment illustrates improvements in the order of which it's presented: Margaret Kerner, Carrie Blake, and Doc Standard. Next slide. Thank you, ma'am. So as far as sewer goes, we have our general sewer plan update, which is in coordination with the comp plan right now. And we have a new project that was added, replacing manholes on Washington Harbor Loop. So listening to the maintenance crew and in an effort to improve I&I in problem areas, this series of manholes receives all the water from the pressure sewer line coming from the state park and the casino and hotel. So the manholes are grossly corroded, to put it kindly. So this is a kind of the funding comes from these wholesale accounts. So the cost recovery for the city is very high, and the return on investment for the city and our sewer conveyance is very high. So we moved this project up as an in-house project to be able to move forward and act on infrastructure that we have discovered is deficient in its operating manner. And then this biosolids capacity project was after a long discussion with our new utilities manager and our outgoing utilities manager. And these final three projects are in the order that they're in to be able to provide a WRF upgrade, a trunk line upgrade, and then an additional capacity upgrade based on the anticipated higher flows due to growth and the higher capacity from the biosolids that we would have in the future from that. And so you can see those are unfunded at this time, which we are exploring. Moving on to stormwater, we have North Brown Road. We are just waiting for funding to open. That will be here shortly. So as soon as we can start getting cost recovery on that, it will be out the door. So that stormwater improvement, we're looking forward to knocking off the list. And this interesting one here, Happy Valley Stormwater Diversion, it is marked as funded but unsecured. But at the time, we had not known that the county was going to close on the purchase of that off-channel reservoir. So I can move that to now bold black because we can act on the funding that we received from FEMA to provide stormwater improvements in the Happy Valley area. And so hopefully the seasonal flooding due to inadequate irrigation ditches can be mitigated through the use of not the off-channel reservoir, but a portion of that land that the off-channel reservoir lies on to provide infiltration mitigation for stormwater. Thank you, Amy. And then last is streets. So this has gotten the most activity and the most consideration due to these numerous signal projects you see on there, 3rd Ave sidewalks and bike routes that you see on there, and the Johnson Creek repair, which is the first project we will be pursuing under the RAISE grant, which is a multi-jurisdiction grant meant for trails that City of Sequim, City of Port Angeles, Clallam County, I believe Bainbridge, a whole group of people associated with the trail co-signed on this grant. So right now that's in the process of being negotiated with local programs to administer. But 5th Ave intersection and the Washington signals and 3rd Ave, those are identified with PED bike funding. And the 3rd Ave sidewalks and bike routes is actually the one that Matt mentioned that we just submitted a grant application for. So we're really looking to take care of those problem intersections and that 3rd Ave corridor north of Washington where the school buses are, improving and using that Safe Routes to Schools funding. And then from there in 26, you can see there's the Keeler Road bike lanes. That is another RAISE grant project. And that is an effort to make a connection from the ODT with the West Squim Road corridor right there on Keeler. Kathy?
Yes, as we've had this discussion before, Keeler Lane is only a public road for a very short distance. The rest of it is private. And they do not even want their neighbors walking through because I live in the development right next to Keeler. We're not even allowed to walk through there. It's private property. So
Right.
how are you going to do that?
So The project will more than likely require right-of-way acquisition. So that's something we're going to be investigating. But that was identified as one of the 3 RAISE grant projects associated with the ODT that we thought would be viable projects.
But how would people safely get from East Washington and West Gwin Bay Road even get to Keeler Road? That's where the danger is.
Through the proposed bike lane, through the proposed bike path.
The bike path would be on West Gwin Bay Road?
The bike path would be connecting to the ODT and the West Gwin Bay corridor there.
On Keeler?
Correct, down Keeler.
That doesn't help anybody unless you live right there. That's private.
Kathy, it's Keeler Road and Keeler Lane. Are you thinking 2 different things?
Oh, I didn't realize that. I live right next to Keeler, which leads to Cedar Ridge. It's a very short period of a public street. The rest of it is private. They do not want people taking a shortcut through there to get to 101, to turn left onto 101. The same with Bell Bottom.
So we can dive into that a little more, and that's exactly what that RAISE grant is intended to do, is to give that sort of assessment on whether or not we should continue on through a final design.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Mm-hmm. And last, we have water. The first project we have, the water system automatic meter reading, that is a continuation project. We are currently in the process of doing that. And the final phase of that project is actually putting the automatic readers on the meters themselves. So all the poles have gone in, all the radios have gone in. So the channels of communication are there. Now we just got to get the radio to talk with all the towers, or radios, I should say. Silverhorn Deep Well, that is an active project and will continue into 25, 26. So we have finished drilling. We have put the screens in. We have developed the well, or in the process of developing the well. So final depth on our well is 575 feet below ground surface. Once the development is complete, that is when the sand pack has been established and the screens have been flushed, then we will perform our capacity testing. And so we have that coordinated with Department of Health and Department of Ecology. And I would expect to see that process starting up here in the next week or so, making sure that we do as little impact to irrigation as possible, because that's our only route to pump all the water that we're looking for. And then the last in the kind of 2 out years, 25, 26, we have our Reservoir Road water main booster station. And that was prioritized based on the completion of the deep well. So deep well goes in, we hook it up to existing infrastructure. Now, when we put the booster station in, we provide an additional service area, pressure service area, that we don't have to the southwest portion of the city and the eastern portion of the southern portion, so Miller Road, as far as a new pressure zone that we can then develop the southwest portion of Sequim with the water and reach out to new customers that are existing, that are in city limits that PUD serves. So those 2 projects, the West Gwin Bay corridor and the booster station reservoir, are the city's effort to expand services and encourage development by front loading the construction of necessary infrastructure. And then the last, we have our annual projects. This is a developing program, but these monies that you see here, specifically for pavement rehab and well, there's two of them: pavement rehab, non-arterial, non-collectors, and pavement rehab arterial collectors is this Public Works' way to capture operations and maintenance, whether it's an overlay or for full rebuild of the local streets, neighborhood streets that have not been addressed in recent years, but also maintain our arterials and collectors, Washington, Squim Ave, things like that. The idea is that the smaller neighborhood streets can be handled with city funds. That way it's more consistent, more reliable. And the arterials and collectors, we can focus on getting grants and loans or some combination of the two to be able to pursue those larger projects. And these annual projects, whether it's the urban stormwater drainage program, the I&I, or the pavement, we would have a roster of plans that are at a varied level between 75 and 80% design. So when we identify funding, we can pick that project off the shelf, get it to the final state, and act on any funding we come across, is the idea behind the program. And so you can see the CIPs at the bottom, projected for 24.3, 25.6, and varying from there, varying a little bit less, but again, really focusing on how do we get the projects we're doing now through the finish line and the prioritized projects of the city shop and West Squim Bay, getting the funding and being able to manage the funding that we have received.
Sorry, apparently I have a lot of questions today. Can we get the copy with the bold and the red and the italics? Because I think I don't have that in what we had online.
So the slides did change a little bit compared to what the Planning Commission was shown. So if you're looking at those, it's obviously a little
Can we get the update? I guess this is my question. And then when you say citywide pedestrian and bike improvements, does that include sidewalks?
It does, and ADA ramps.
Okay, so then that it would be ADA. Yeah, that was my last question. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm uncomfortable with the silence. This is a lot of information, so I'm hoping we have a little time to
first
digest
touch only,
it.
yeah.
Yes,
We can
really
definitely
appreciate.
come
And
down.
as I told you, my dog doesn't like your voice, so he barked through the entire presentation. So I need a little more time.
Depending on our mood, your dog might have something in common with my wife. So.
And I have to thank Nick and Paul. They actually reduced this. Your planning commission sat through a lot. Like this is a very condensed, much more articulate and front-loaded analysis or presentation tonight. So it is a lot. We've got a really busy staff.
Anything else? Otherwise, there's a motion.
I think I can make a motion. I move to direct staff to schedule a second touch on this matter in the regular manner. I think we need more time.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I would like to see when this comes back how each at least the 2025 and 2026 fall in with council goals.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any opposed to the motion? All right, seeing none, motion passes. Item 10B, Transportation Improvement Plan, first touch. Nick.
Okay, thank you again. So the TIP document you have in front of you is updated based on the CIP process. So the projects presented in streets are the vetted projects that then transfer over to the transportation improvement program. And from there, the projects fall out in similar years where they were previously. And so the stepping of projects is more focused on the management and presentation of the CIP, and the TIP is a reflection of that review process for the capital. So not that I don't have anything to say, it's just a lot of the decision making is reflected in the capital improvement program.
Just to be sure I'm not making an assumption, the numbers there are in thousands?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just my comments from before and coming back, how they relate to council goals. First year or so. Anything else from council questions?
I agree
Otherwise,
with your question, Brandon. Thank you.
there is a
I
motion.
have a quick question. Are there new goals, or are those from the previous set goal drafting, the city council goals? There's new goals. Okay.
I assume you're talking about your recent retreat. Yeah, we've got all those.
Which is why you want to have that conversation.
If there's nothing further, there is a motion.
Brian, just for, perhaps I'm slowing down here, the clock goes on, but if what we're doing here is kind of process dependent on the CIP, would it be premature to do an ordinance now? The motion here that's prepared,
Well, let's come back for a public hearing.
okay, yeah, okay. But do we need to do the second touch on the CIP before we can have a meaningful public hearing on this?
Do we need to?
So to be clear, that the second touch would not be considered a public hearing for the CIP then? You just want a general second touch?
Mm-hmm.
Unless Paul says otherwise.
No, for the tip, you can move forward, have a public hearing without worrying about what's going on with the CIP, because the transportation improvement plan is I apologize for talking from the audience. I should have walked up here. I thought I could answer it real quickly. So for the tip, you do need to have a public hearing, and it's independent of what you got going on with the CIP. The CIP is for budgeting purposes. The tip is for identifying the projects that the city intends on doing it sometime in the future. It doesn't even have to be time-based. You just have to have your list of them with an approximate deadline, because it's going to move every year. Does that answer your question?
I understand what you're saying. I just am trying to reconcile that with this presentation being so dependent on the previous one that we spent quite a bit of time on.
Correct. Where I've worked before, the conversation on the transportation improvement plan, the TIP, occurs in the spring and gets finalized, and then the capital program discussion occurs at a later date when you're doing the budget process. Here they go together, so it's a little unusual for me. But since the TIP basically sets all the list of projects you want to work on, the committee wants to have
listed for funding purposes. We go after them. The capital program is using and drawing from the TIP. The question is have new projects on the transportation side been added to the TIP that are now going to be a part of the packages going forward after funding under the CIP? What projects were on the TIP but have been completed that are now come off? Because if they're under construction or they've been built, they need to come off the TIP as a plan. Not sure if that helped anything or just made it more confusing. Hopefully
it's getting
clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. There are a lot of projects in 2030. So if you find other funding, they can move up or they might move out past 2030.
Correct.
Thank you.
Having been satisfied by the response to my confusion, I move to direct staff prepare an ordinance and schedule a public hearing on this matter in the regular manner of the next city council meeting.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 10C, mid-year 2024 budget amendment and ordinance authorizing unforeseen expenditures for 2024.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy, and council members. This is the first formal touch on the second budget amendment we're proposing for 2024. I have brought our fabulous Parks and Events manager up with me because this entire amendment is all about adding a staff person to the Parks and Events team, as well as adding an FTE to our wage and or salary and wage schedule that's required to be approved by council. So I'm going to let Hannah take it away. She's going to carry the water on this.
Good evening. For purposes of the record, this is Hannah Merrill. I am the Public Works Parks and Events Manager. And as you all know, the whole population of SQUIM continues to grow. The amount of use in our parks and open spaces continues to expand. And we've been catching up with the parks that are existing, and there's a whole lot to do with the parks that are undeveloped. So this FTE supports a diverse range of responsibilities that were outlined in the assistant manager job description that you all have, including event and program planning, community engagement, team supervision, special event permit compliance, and supports community communication and marketing, contract administration, community representation, facility management, resource management, and volunteer coordinating, which have all been underserved at this time due to the amount of work we've been doing to maintain and get the existing parks maintained and going, and keeping them going. And this frees my position up to focus on master planning and strategic planning, budget management, policy development, stakeholder relations, staff development, and quality assurance of what we are doing out in our parks. Hopefully some innovation and improvement, tasks, public relations, emergency management, strategic partnerships, and succession planning. So if anyone has any questions, I'd welcome any questions, but that is what we are trying to accomplish. Yes, Kathy?
I really am uncomfortable doing this in the middle of the year. I think a position, I don't mind voting for a position to start in January, but I cannot see the need for adding a position in the middle of the year. And I'm all for the parks, and I really appreciate everything you do, Hannah, but I just can't see doing this in right now. Thank you.
We're trying to support just the increase of events and program planning, just have more activities and things for the public, as well as wanting to get master planning underway since we have a new park coming online, and we have some that we want to be, finishing master plans for, that we can get some infrastructure going sooner than later, which is part of the wanting to start it now.
I understand what you're saying.
And maybe I can just support this, if it's okay, Council. This is partly due to my encouragement and promotion. You'll remember in November, we did a fair amount of remodeling of the org chart and really pulled facilities away from parks. We gave them events and told them to really to re-engage with the community in a much more powerful way. We didn't move to add the FTE in the middle of winter and at that time, but there was discussion all along that we know they need more staff to be able to accomplish all the events and all the things that we want to do. We just didn't do it at the same time of the holidays and all that. So because I and others just keep pushing, the residents are pushing it, we just felt like it's summertime. We need to probably respond if at all possible. So I just appreciate their willingness to come and ask this of you all. And I think you can tell by the job description, they're drowning in that department. So I appreciate their willingness to bring this to you.
Thank you, Matt. I'd also add that, as I think one of the very first lines you read is when we're creating a budget, there's unanticipated stuff that pops up. This is not the first time that we've done a mid-year amendment to add staff. The last time we did it, we added 2 police officers to help the police department get through all of the retirements and sort of the revolving door to help secure their department. So it's not unprecedented that we are planning this in the middle of the year. I just wanted you to say this is not necessarily unusual because everybody knows the budget is a plan and plans change. So thank you. Any other questions?
Just thank you. I think you probably answered my question. I was going to ask Kathy if there's something other than just sort of a general principle that you were objecting to.
No, I think when we're elected, one of our responsibilities is towards the budget. And I think that I'm comfortable with this position being planned to start in January, not starting right now.
I hear what you're saying, just respectfully disagree.
That's fine.
And so we have the money for this. We need the FTE. You all are responsible for the FTE count for the city. And so it's not going to jeopardize. I mean, we just have to ask. So it's not in any way affecting the budget outside, other than just getting your permission to do it. So I really appreciate your sensitivity to your responsibilities as the fiscal keepers of our budget. That is your job. And so I appreciate the scrutiny and the care. But believe me, this will not compromise our budget that you've already approved in any way.
And I would just add that the financial the really important thing here is that we get the FTE count and we get that position and we get that person on board in the height of summer and festival season. That's the most important thing. The money side of it is has very little impact, although we've put some money in for a partial year of this person's wages and benefits. A good 70% or whatever work they do in the reuse park is actually reimbursed by some water and sewer resources based upon what they're doing in the reuse park. So it's not just all a shell out for salaries and benefits. It's partially reimbursed. I do those particular charges and calculations on a quarterly basis so I can make sure that the reuse park is in good shape and has the resources they need. Any other questions or comment? I just have one final little tidbit, and maybe you need some more time to chew on this, but again, because of the season that we're in, Staff is recommending waiving the second touch and scheduling a public hearing at the next council meeting. But that's really up to you. That's just our recommendation. And if you need some more time to chew on it, it'll slow Hannah down, but we would be happy to do that.
And for clarification, this does require a public hearing?
Absolutely. It's FTE. Yeah.
For me, in principle, I agree with it. However, before I can vote in the affirmative, I think certain things need to happen. I think the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to go before the voters the municipal park question before I can vote to create this position. And you did lose me with master plan. So that main thing needs to happen before I can support adding this FTE.
Let's see. So regarding the Metropolitan Park District, staff have been working on preparing a bunch of research materials. I'm not sure when that's scheduled to come back in front of council. But I do know that the Parks and Events staff are drowning in all of the activities that are occurring across the city.
And, you know, thank you, Mayor, for bringing that up. That was supposed to be in my city manager report. I talked to Marin about that today and forgot to actually add it to my list. So there is an internal committee. We wanted to make sure that you knew that we were working on that you asked staff to do that. They've had a meeting and have others scheduled to pull all of those parts together, but we're not ready to bring it back to you yet. This is based on your request about the Metropolitan Park District. And so it hasn't fallen between the cracks, but we're just not there, and we haven't researched enough to be able to hand it to you just yet. But I think in the next meeting or two, we'll be there.
Yeah.
And just to speak to master plans, there with a new park coming in line that will have a lot of infrastructure and things that we'll need to fund, that will be a master plan that will have to go out to a consultant, very likely. And so we'll need to work on funding to get public input, get somebody on team online. But the smaller parks that are in city that we've not been able to get online because of just the amount of other things that we've been working on. I believe Gerhardt Keeler can be done in-house, and that would be part of what I haven't been able to get myself wrapped around. I would be able to with this additional support.
Move to direct staff to schedule a public hearing on this matter in the regular manner.
I second that.
Any further discussion? City clerk, please take a roll call.
Councilor Downer,
Yes.
Councilor Butler,
Yes.
Councilor Lowe,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Janice,
No.
Councilor Hartman.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1.
Thank you so much, council.
All right, item 10D, Municipal Code, Chapter 2.48, Council Compensation Code Amendment, first touch.
Thank you, Council. So this is another one of your favorite items of Code Scrub, where staff is going through and updating outdated language, adding clarifications where needed. This came about really based on the a salary commission that happened in 2022. The Swim City Council adopted a revision to this, which created a salary commission to determine the future council compensation moving forward. And after the first use of that salary commission, staff identified some gaps of guidance that was needed in the chapter. Specifically, the original language did not include important deadlines for meetings and report submissions. So this amendment is hoping to add that clarifying language and clarify some membership terms as well. So this is before you for consideration, does not require a public hearing, and is up for your discussion tonight.
Anything from council?
This just looks like standard housekeeping to me, so.
There is a motion if anybody's ready.
I'd move to waive the second touch on this matter and direct staff to present an ordinance on the consent agenda at the next available meeting to adopt the proposed amendments to SMC Chapter 2.48.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right. Item 10E, Municipal Code, Chapter 2.04, City Council Code Amendment. Amy?
Yes, thank you. So this was discussed briefly at your last meeting. I had noted that it was, again, kind of a code scrub update of adding language clarification, a lot of things that we're already currently doing that are not currently listed in our code. So it's nice to add those things in. Some references to the notice of meeting, executive sessions. One item that was pointed out is that under the section for study sessions and work sessions, 2.04.020, it was noted that the suggested change for study sessions to be non-action discussions and any proposed items during a study session would need to go back to a regular session. That change is different from what has happened in the past. So I apologize for not catching that before. A year ago, council had a couple work sessions for housing, for example, where at those work sessions, there were some motions passed because you were talking about housing. Now that is fine under the RCW, under the law, where as long as you have a posted clear agenda item, that you talk about that item at a work or a study session, you could legally take action on that item. You can't just pick another random item to discuss. But if you have that item, you could make motions and things like that. So this change, if you wanted this change, this would say that you would no longer be able to do that you would just have your study and work sessions discussion, and then to come back to a regular meeting and make any motions or things. This change was proposed because that is a very common practice that a lot of jurisdictions do. Again, it necessarily isn't a legal issue, but I think it helps delineate for a lot of jurisdictions what is discussion and what actually happens, under the bright lights of a regular session meeting. But if you choose to, you could discuss this change tonight. You could choose to go with this originally proposed language, or I do have some suggested modifications that might help kind of bridge the gap between what's been done before and kind of some general practice. I'd be happy to discuss those options some more. Say generally study sessions are discussion based, but you may take action. So there's some language we could discuss, but that's, I think, why this item was pulled off the consent for your further discussion tonight.
For me, I still want the ability to take action during a study session if needed. Councilor Downer?
Yes, I was surprised. We don't always get the exhibits at the agenda meeting, and this kind of took me by surprise, or I was not paying attention. It took our council a year to rewrite the guidelines for our meetings, and then we finally passed it. And that's probably been a year and a half ago, Brandon, or Rachel would remember. And I'm not sure why we weren't told at that time that we had to change it, or that we couldn't vote on things during a one subject work session. So what happened? Did the state change the guidelines, or why are we changing it? Which counselor brought this up that they wanted it changed?
I can speak to that, Kathy. So this was just, again, part of staff trying to clean up code language and go with best practices, standard language. So this is just often what different jurisdictions have moved towards. So this was not intended to cause any ruffles necessarily. It was just hoping to clean up some clarification, but now noting that maybe this is not the direction council wants to go, so happy to modify.
I would like to move, now I don't have the script in front of me, but I did write down your suggestion, Amy. I would like to move to add the word generally at the beginning and strike the word must and put may, M-A-Y.
I'm also happy to read that for the record if that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Kathy, your suggestion would be under 2.04.020 title study/work sessions. I believe second to last two sentences would read, generally, study sessions are for non-action discussions and no public comment will be taken during that portion of the meeting. Any proposed council action taken based on study session discussions may occur in regular session and may require being added to the agenda.
I would just like to strike that whole subject. The other two things in that proposal I'm fine with, but this I don't think I think we should be able to make a motion during a work session. I've never called them study sessions. If we need to use that term, I'm on board with it. But I just think that when we're having a one topic work session, which we haven't really done for a long time, that we should be able to make a motion instead of waiting for a meeting to make a motion. I'm not sure how the rest of council feels about that.
I agree with Councilor Downer.
I don't know what historical practice has been here, but I'm used to, you've got a regular meeting and then you've got a special meeting, and a special meeting could be called for the purpose of a one topic action item, and it's limited to that action item, or you could have a special meeting held for the purpose of a work or study session where no action is anticipated. And I think one of the benefits of just calling it a special meeting and defining what the agenda is for the public's benefit of knowing whether action is going to be taken or not. That's just my 2 cents.
Yes, I think that I'm used to a special meeting being different than a work session, being different than an executive session. And this city doesn't even do a meeting called council as a whole, where the council sits down, because we're allowed to talk amongst ourselves with the secretary and the administration present. A council of the whole meeting is set to decide the rules of the council, but they don't do that here. But to me, a work session, which this ordinance is calling a study session, that's fine, is different than a special meeting.
Any other input from council?
Just a quick possibly question and comment that I was trying to figure out some wording so that action may be taken at work sessions, but then it also occurred to me that it would be no different than a special meeting. And so I don't know, like, what's the difference at that point?
Right. Well, since nobody seconded my motion, it's dead in the water, so.
Well, restate your motion because you kind of muddled it after saying you wanted to nix something.
No, I just wanted, there's 3 items in this ordinance. The third one being the not being able to take action on something that happened during a work session. Well, to me, a work session is a one topic meeting. I don't know that previous councils have ever violated that concept. But what Amy read back is fine, as long as if you want to say special / work / study session, that's fine with me. But I think I would like to move to add the word generally at the beginning and strike the word must to may be voted on during the work session.
If we call it a special meeting, there's already language that addresses that.
Exactly.
2.04 or 0.050.
So maybe
No,
sorry,
go
okay.
ahead.
I know, trying to work it out here. So maybe it could be helpful for council if we had like a foundational, like special meetings are used if we are talking about something specific and we're likely to vote on said topic. But work sessions, like when we have a work session with the PUD commissioners or the county commissioners or the school board, like that would be a work session. We don't have any action. We're just having a discussion. And so I think having that kind of vision, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, having that the framework, thank you, makes it a lot easier to differentiate them if we can remember what each one is typically for. Is that
Well, I think
helpful?
special session is outside the ordinary bounds, like when we were interviewing council candidates outside of a Monday meeting.
Exactly.
That was a special one. Or for when we, in pre-COVID, when it first started, when we met in special to enact certain COVID measures for the city. That was a special meeting. Anything, I would say anything prior to a council meeting is going to be a work session generally. I think a special session is something called specifically outside those general normal council session hours.
I'm referring to as an example, the 2 work sessions we had a year ago, maybe even longer, on housing, on affordable versus workforce housing. And at the end of each session, we passed ordinances because we had so much work to do. We were starting from scratch. We had a lot of work to do. We didn't want to be constrained by meeting time. I know all of you weren't present for that, but that's what I'm referring to.
I also, another quick comment. I also feel like a work session, I likely wouldn't want to take any action because if a work session is more of a discussion, I would want to research what we were discussing and then come back to a regular meeting to take action. And that might not apply for everybody, but in my head, that is a sensible course of action.
Which brings up the point, if we just discussed this and passed it a year and a half ago, why are we revisiting it?
I can speak to an item. So one of the reasons part of this was being changed as well was you'll note some of the language added to the study work sessions was no public comment will be taken during that portion of the meeting. That was missing from the code where again, just because you hold a meeting doesn't mean that you hold public comment. And again, standard practice, lots of other jurisdictions have that clean line of public comment. It happens again, under the lights at a regular session meeting versus at a work session or a study session. So that again that's one of the items with part of this whole code scrub. It was just not focused on that one section. That was also adding in the public comment language and adding some other language throughout the chapter as well, adding that update to executive sessions and adding, as I spoke to last meeting, adding the notice of meetings, again, just so that clarity is there. So if someone were to look at this chapter, which discusses meetings, that all of that was touched on. So again, that was the intent, but again, it is before you for consideration or not.
If council wants more time, we can move to postpone this to next meeting if so desired.
I was looking at this on the Municipal Research Service Center. And there's basically, by RCW, there's only two types of meetings. There's a regular meeting or a special meeting. And a special meeting can include a tour. It could be a work session. It could be a study session. It could be a one topic action item. So we're really only dealing with two types here. We don't have to break it out into three. And all special meetings require notice of a certain kind, 24-hour notice, publication on the front door and on the website. So I think we'd be covered if just for a special meeting, you have to note what your intent is so that the public's aware of it. Either we're not going to be taking action or we anticipate or we may take action. It just leaves it open so you can take action if you want to.
So Kathy still has a motion. Do you want to reiterate, Kathy, or do you want it to die for lack of a second?
Just let it die.
All right. Do we want to, somebody have a separate motion? Do we want to postpone to next meeting?
I think that's a good idea. I would move that we postpone this discussion until further work can be done addressing the concerns that have been raised.
Do you have clear direction that you need, Amy, for next meeting?
Yeah, I can go with like Nicole's suggestion of maybe clarifying based on RCWs, the difference between just a special and the regular. If that's kind of the direction council's wanting, we could propose a draft in that regard or some other direction.
Or we could call a work session and work on talk. No, let's, what you said, Amy, is what I was intending.
Okay, does that kind of what a thumbs up of the majority of council understanding that direction? Okay. So you moved for that as well.
All right, we'll bring it back.
Second and a.
Was there a second? I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a majority. Okay. Any opposed? Nope. Okay. All right, open council discussion. Rachel, you got something?
Yes. Okay. So I emailed their lovely admin about the, asking, do the voting delegates have any other commitments? And no, they do not. The delegates are just for the business meeting, which was really great to hear, frankly. And at the business meeting, you guys might be interested to hear what's voted on at the business meeting. So they elect the AWC board of directors. Other things that can happen are hearing an update from the AWC CEO, voting on AWC statement of policy, and updates about updates from the bylaws review committee. So really exciting stuff. And with that, I believe the applications are due Wednesday. Is it Thursday? Anyway, it can be done over Zoom, which is also great. I love having that option. And with that, I'm interested in attending. It's a bummer Harmony couldn't be here because I know that she loves doing the AWC centric things. So maybe I could try emailing her and see if she's interested. However, that wouldn't really help because we need to appoint delegates together.
It says voting delegate registrations, cancellations, and substitutions will be accepted until 2 p.m. on Thursday, June 20th. So right up to the day. And it's an in-person meeting in Vancouver.
Right. And I was more concerned about making sure all of council approved the delegates. So I didn't want to just like, okay, I'll put my name in the hat and submit and then not have council approve that.
I'm okay with that. And if Harmony wanted to, I'm okay with that as well, if she agrees.
Okay. So that's possibly 2. Is there a third? We can have up to 3, which I always thought was exciting because we are so small and everybody gets the same number of delegates.
When was it again? You said it was on Zoom. You could do it?
Oh gosh.
Oh, in person. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to then if it's in person.
Is it June 20th? At, I want to say 4:30? 5. I don't have all the information in front of me. Nope, I lost it.
It's 4 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. in Vancouver.
There's an online option for voting delegates.
Yeah, online option. So I guess last call if
I can
anybody's
attempt
interested.
to do it.
And I will email Harmony. Thank you.
Anything else for open discussion?
I perhaps should have said something or asked this when Nick was here, so perhaps put it off a little bit. And it didn't seem pertinent to his specific presentation, and I in hindsight, wish I had. But 2 meetings ago, there was quite a discussion about the intersection of West Squim Bay and Rodifer with this elementary school, preschool there, and so on. I didn't see anything in the minutes of the last meeting from which I was absent. Has there been progress on that discussion?
There should be something coming back next meeting, right?
Yes, and if you check your email, I think it's Paul. We've had several internal meetings about it, and we assigned Paul as the point person. I asked him to outline all of the details, all the steps. There's about 8 things that he's pursuing. He wanted you to know all of those things that he plans on coming back with you.
Great, thank
you. As well as he'll bring some recommendations and suggestions. So yeah, it's in the works.
Good. And then Christina, I'm curious if you have comment on the city of Squim's jurisdiction on this Squim Valley Irrigation District conversation that's happening that where council's beginning to get letters from the public on.
So I presume that you're referring to the comment that council received this morning. I can say that staff have had some preliminary comments on this, but we're not prepared to say anything at this point because obviously we haven't really involved ourselves in this issue. And as near as I can tell, the only issue would be whether or not the city would be enforcing plat conditions associated with the Jenny Meadows plat, and we would need to look into the details of those documents before we could say that the city would be involved one way or the other. At this juncture, I don't know what that would look like beyond any type of plat enforcement or.
Yeah, thank you. It sort of seemed like it was outside of our purview, probably. So.
That's what it looks like. Yeah. But obviously we're going to look at this a little bit more closely, and we can either send council an email or give it to the city manager as part of a city manager report. So.
Thank you. Brandon, then finally, I'm sorry, I've kept notes going here and we're going long, I realize. We just spent time with Kathy taking the ordinance for city council off the consent agenda. We spent quite a bit of time. It gave me more time to look at that in light of the disrespect shown by online participants in today's meeting. I'm looking at that and there's nothing I don't see anything in our regular meeting ordinance that requires us to offer online participation. Is that something we might want to consider as we're considering how to respond to this apparently increased?
Are you saying
Brandon.
to
Brandon, could I interject here?
Oh, are you saying like just cut it out? Like say not have Zoom meeting or comments?
I'm just looking at our regular meeting only refers to having a regular meeting in person and comments in person and here in the specific address and so on. So
Oh, I think, yeah, recent RCW, but yeah.
it's an RCW.
And that's exactly where I was going to go. Thank you, Brandon, is that in 2022, I believe it was, the RCWs to the Open Public Meeting Act was changed to allow for virtual public comment. And so as you know, I made a note after this previous discussion that staff would be looking at alternatives and things like that to present to council. And we can, staff are going to be looking at that, and we will do the same, either send you an email or identify some various options for you. But after all of that happened, I looked at our council rules, and we very clearly call out that public comment, even the general public comment, is a limited public forum, meaning that we don't necessarily need to allow all things. There may be a few things that we want to tweak or modify, but
yeah, we can make it to where it has to be very specific topics. Like I think Seattle or Tacoma have specific, or anything else is like a, I don't know what they call it, a servants, whatever. Or like online, you could have no online comment. However, RCW says you have to make certain exceptions for people that can't make in-person comments, so things like that. So you have to, you know, there's ways to screen, but we'll look forward to what staff bring back.
I have one item that I'm not sure. I had some conversations with Harmony. She, as you know, comes to City Council on her day off, which is Monday. So we had several conversations today together. She sent a very excited email to myself and to the clerks, and I asked her to, did she want me to forward that to you all? And I don't know if that happened or not, but I don't mind informing you that she was very excited about being accepted into the inaugural cohort of the Washington Collaborative Elected Leaders Institute. Did you all get that information from her? Okay, then I'll just let it go. But yes, it's quite a commitment, and she's kind of all in. So very excited. She'll be doing that with Drew, or somehow kind of collaborating together from Port Angeles. So thank you.
Anything else? All right, who would like to attend next agenda meeting on the 18th? Two o'clock. All right, if anybody decides they want to, just shoot me or Rachel an email, or Amy. Other than that, next council meeting will be on the 24th at 6 p.m. Hybrid option. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I can attend on the 18th.
Okay. Kathy
Thank
will
you.
do it.
Move to adjourn.
Move seconded.
Second.
No opposed. All right. See you on the 18th, 24th.